Hi, my name is Derek Andersen. I'm the founder of Startup Grind, and I am in Europe. On a 10-day tour, starting in Madrid and then going to the Middle East, and then finishing off very, very strong in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Stockholm, Sweden.
So you just flew in from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Swedish coffee works.
Well, we love to start these off by just getting to know you a little bit. Tell us about where you grew up. Tell us about what your mom and dad did for work, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So I'm from here. I'm from Stockholm. So I'm born and raised in one of the suburbs on the west side, Spånga, Tensta. That's where I grew up. Hey, west side.
A lot of West Siders here tonight.
Yeah. No, but
we targeted them in the Facebook ads. So
good. No, I don't know. I think we don't have too many entrepreneurs actually coming out of that side of the city.
Why not?
I don't know. I think a lot of the efforts to kind of inspire entrepreneurs have been targeted towards academia, like after you graduate from university, which I, by the way, never did. That's when you're supposed to become an entrepreneur. Or you should be an engineer, successful, 5 years at Ericsson, and then that's when you can kind of gamble a little bit and become an entrepreneur. At least that's been kind of the signals that they've been saying.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's where I grew up, and I don't come from a academic background in terms of family at all. So I don't have anybody in my family with any university degree or diploma. So
Your mom was a nurse, is that correct?
yeah. She was a nurse for many years, and now she's actually running a little flea market.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
cool. And your dad, you talked a little bit of, I've heard you talk a little bit about your dad, that he was an electrician, if that's right, and really he was a builder, he was a creator, is that right?
Yeah. Well, so I never grew up with any entrepreneurs, really.
Yeah.
Any company builders or famous people or people with, these big companies behind them. But I like to think of myself as a person that grew up with a lot of entrepreneurs still, but kind of entrepreneurs in the smaller scale, building projects, having these different ideas on how to improve things for their family, for themselves, for neighbors. So my father was an electrician by trade, but also a pretty good welder, a good carpenter, so a handyman.
And what about you? Were you always an engineer? Were you always building things? Were you entrepreneurial? Were you not entrepreneurial? What?
Yeah. I wish my mom was here, actually. Because I've always been
Well, we have her. Come on. No, we don't. I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow. that would have been a surprise. She could tell you stories for hours about the weird stuff that I built.
She's next month, maybe.
Oh, my. Well, no, I've always built stuff. Electric devices of different degree of danger.
Yeah.
So yeah. So ever since I was kind of 10, pretty much I've been building these different prototypes of stuff, and programming and soldering, and trying to make things work. Yeah.
What was the first business that you started?
The first real proper business was actually I think we might have a little sound thing.
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. No, so the first kind of more proper business was a import business for sporting goods. I don't know if any of you've heard about Trampolinspecialisten. Stop. All right, a few. That's pretty cool. So that was first. My good friend, he.
You co-founded that.
Yeah, I was actually the first employee. So I wasn't really a founder, but I was the first employee, and they needed somebody that could sell the darn trampolines that they've accidentally bought too many of.
Yeah, tell the story. That's a funny story.
Yeah, so a friend of mine, he was an exchange student in his young years in Canada. He had one of those big garden trampolines. Enjoyed that. Came back to his family in Stockholm and wanted to buy one. He had to buy at least a dozen to kind of pay for shipping it because it wasn't available in Europe at the time. So he bought a dozen or so, kept one and sold the others to his neighbors, and that's kind of how he came up with the idea. And then he was looking for somebody that was able to sell the trampolines, but also somebody that could renovate a little shack they had with a little bit of electricity work that needed to be done and some carpentering, just making it look like a small shop. And I was probably the only guy that, he knew that could do all of that. So, with a father electrician, and so my first job was to build the shop. Yeah, we did that, and we built the business, and it's actually a nice profitable business still. And my friend's kid brother is now the CEO and still running the business. So.
How old were you when you were involved in that?
Around 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what came next? You've started other things before Tobii. Tell us about something else you started.
So the first real VC-backed business was my first spin-out from the institute where I did research for a while. A company called Jensen Technology. That was founded completely based on the research that I was doing. So I'm a kind of a math nerd without a degree, believe it or not, and with a passion for sensors. So pretty much everything that I've done well has been based on sensors and the related math interpretation of the signals of these sensors. I know it's sexy.
Well, that's a great point, because we're always told, you see these famous quotes like, follow your passion. It's like, well, you're passionate about sensors. That's not you don't meet a guy like that every day.
Yeah, and sensors are everywhere, and a lot of the interaction that we have with any kind of machine goes through a sensor that picks up your intention.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big part of the whole technology side. So yeah, that's where I have my passion. And so I was fortunate enough to get a sort of a research internship at one of the institutes here in Stockholm. Did some work there, and they actually decided to shut down the research project after a while. But the backers behind the project, they wanted to use this technology and actually build it into a product, not only a prototype. So I offered to do that by going through building a company and claiming kind of the research into that company. And that's how I started as an entrepreneur, as a VC-backed, more technology entrepreneur.
And is that something where they let you just take the technology, or did they become a partner in that company, or how did the school manage that here? Different universities have different policies. I wonder what the...
Absolutely, and this part of the world is very different from for example, the U.S. And this was 2001, so KTH didn't really have any way to pick up these ideas. We didn't have any incubator business. There was some advice that you could get, but very, very early kind of into that. So. And the institute didn't have any way to own any stake in a private business. So they were very happy and keen to support the backers of this research project by providing, this young, crazy guy with everything he needed to build a business to develop the product. So I got to recruit 5 people from the institute. I got all the furniture. I got a bit of money, actually, and they didn't want anything. Actually, the only request they had on me was that I could never mention that the company had a heritage from the institute.
They want to...
That was the only thing. That changed some 5 years later.
You can take the technology, but don't tell anyone. Don't give us any credit.
Don't give us any credit. Oh, it was odd times, and now it's changing, and that whole kind of thing, the whole circle kind of closed when the CEO of the same institute did his MBA thesis at my company. A few years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that was Sweden at the time, and I mean that's only going back some 13 years. And,
Yeah.
And the institute's doing this pretty hardcore research based on tax money, EU money, or Swedish money, with some idea that this research will create work opportunities. They had absolutely no way to encourage nor spin off any type of business.
Yeah.
So it was only by force that I was able to do that. But when I actually had the company formed, they were very willing to give me all the IP. I could headhunt straight out of the institute. And so for me as an entrepreneur, that was actually
It's amazing.
good.
Yeah.
I tried to push 5% ownership on them, but they refused to take it.
And you're going to be handing out some of that, which you've kept here tonight, right? So let's talk about Tobii. Where did the idea for Tobii come from, and what problem were you originally trying to solve by starting that business?
Right. So I mean, the idea really comes out of the same institute, the Institute for Surface Chemistry, where I spent a couple years, very intense years, really pushing 80 hours in the lab kind of weeks, and I did a lot of work on optical sensors and algorithms to interpret the picture, the image flow from those sensors. And I did that work to help the paper and pulp industry with a problem they had, to trace different types of particles, to size them and determine the direction and orientation of these particles. But I accidentally turned this sensor around, and well, first I got it to trace coins that I was rolling past it, and I was playing around with it basically.
This is literally like one night.
Yeah.
You've worked 80 hours. You're exhausted. You've been drinking a lot, I can tell. at that night, anyways, not anymore.
I hadn't been drinking, but pretty much
Okay.
everything else was true. So it was late night. I was in the lab, was just playing around with it, and it actually started to trace my eyes. So it thought my pupils were coins. So and that's kind of where the idea started. I thought I could assist the optics a little bit by adding a little bit of a pattern to it, and I started to play around with that. So, and then I took those ideas and built it into a somewhat working prototype, and that's where it started. And then I had actually to postpone that work a little bit, so I put it on ice for a little bit while going after some other business ideas and businesses that I was building at the time. For a couple of years, but as soon as I saw an end to that life and that company, I immediately picked up my eye tracking idea again.
Let's talk about entrepreneurs in Sweden and in Stockholm specifically. What are you seeing from entrepreneurs now? How are they different than they were, than you and the entrepreneurs that you saw 13 years ago? And what advice do you have for entrepreneurs that are trying to get it going here today?
Well, I think there is a big difference. Going from kind of 20 years ago, where I had at least the impression that it was innovators, just these typically older men with an innovation that they wanted to own to 100%, and they wouldn't want to give away anything, combined with a culture where building a profitable business, earning money, becoming successful, show up with your face in media wasn't cool. It was a little bit frowned upon. Now that's changed. I mean, the coolest thing you can be in Stockholm now is an entrepreneur, right? At least that's what I think. And I mean, the culture has changed. So building businesses, that is cool. People realize that there's a huge social value in successful companies being formed. Work opportunities, tax income, and everything for the state. So even if you go after, we build computers for severely disabled people. That's the largest part of what we do. And I need to prove to my investors that there's a true business case behind every machine sold. We need to earn money. So maybe 20 years ago that would have been difficult sale to the people, to Sweden. earning money from disabled people. But I would actually argue that the fact that there is a business case building these machines have attracted capital, talent, and a lot of hard work, which has given the disabled people a way to talk. Thousands of people that couldn't say a word before can now talk through their eye movements. And that wouldn't have been possible without a good financial calculation and a possibility to earn money. So, thanks.
Tell us about, and we're going to take questions in about 5 minutes, so please have those ready. Tell us about some of the use cases of your product. Tell us about actual people that you're helping, and tell us about where they were before your product and now, specifically what your product has done to change their lives. I know there's literally thousands of examples, tens of thousands.
Yeah, so eye tracking and our eye tracking sensors today, you'll see them mostly either for accessibility for people with disabilities, or within the bigger media agencies, usability labs to test usability, to test the ad efficiency. Two very different businesses, but that's where eye tracking is used mainly today. Towards the end of the year, you'll see a gaming peripheral as well. So all your hardcore gamers, StarCraft, Dota, League of Legends, everybody enjoying that will be able to use eye tracking in combination with those games. So a little commercial there. No, but
Yeah,
that's
great.
kind of that's the use cases.
And that's your own. That's your own product, or is that something you're partnering with someone that is using your technology?
That's a partnership with
Partnership.
a gaming company.
Yeah,
So
cool.
it's going to be under their name, but it's us doing the product.
Very
No,
cool.
but the biggest use case and the absolute biggest market, and also the thing we were most proud of is accessibility for disabled people. And I don't know, anybody heard about the Ice Bucket Challenge? So that's to raise awareness for ALS. I hope everybody has done the Ice Bucket Challenge. It was founded by Stephen Gleason. He's a Tobii user. Actually, a very, very large part of the ALS community uses eye tracking in the latest stage of the progression of the disease. When you lose the ability to use your hands, the eyes, they're very close to the brain, which means that that's the last piece of motorical skill that you still have. So an on-screen keyboard, intelligently made for your language and your preferences, your shortcuts and whatever else, and that's how you type and that's how you talk. So the most important use case is people that can't talk and have a problem using a keyboard quick enough, so they talk by eye movements. That's and Stephen Gleason and a bunch of these very well-known people are ambassadors for us, but it's the normal kids and other adults using eye tracking. That's what we're proud of. So.
It's people with MS, neck, brain injuries, ALS.
Yeah.
If you think about when you were first in the lab and the coin rolled across the table, and you think 13 years ahead, could you have ever imagined that this is the product and the company and the customers and the people who you would have been helping? Did you ever have could you have ever even dreamed of what good would have come out of that little piece of technology 13 years ago that you had just kind of chanced on?
Well, no, I never thought we would succeed, really. And I never thought we had what it took, really. But yes, I could imagine. And I think that's the important lesson. I mean, for me, I was able to put aside all the problems, and yes, I could imagine. And I did imagine exactly this to happen, and even more, and even quicker. And that was the whole idea. That was the whole engine behind it. I knew that this crazy idea could potentially be extremely useful. So that's why I went for it. And I'm happy I didn't see all the problems. But yeah, we could imagine this happening.
And you've changed the world. Let's give it up for John. Thank you so much for coming.